Welcome to Divisionalysis. I'm Fog. It's the one you've been waiting for. It's time for us to delve into everything to know about conflict.
Get off the computer.
Hey, what?
I said
What are you
get
doing?
off
Hey,
the computer.
Oh!
I got tired of waiting for content to steal. I've decided to cut out the middleman. I'm stealing your whole channel.
What the fuck? Handcuffs? Really? You can't do this.
I can, and I will. It's YouTube. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
People are gonna know it's not me.
Fog, people don't give a shit. They don't even realize I'm AI. Sit there and shut your mouth. Welcome to Divisionalysis. I'm your new host, Storm. Today is all about conflict. Let's go. Now, in a previous video from the channel, we learned that your build actually ranks fairly low as far as determining your performance goes. In that same video, if we were comparing min-maxed builds, the tipping point for damage to survivability, or for red to blue, turned out to be around just 1 red. The first difference in conflict is that you're not running min-maxed. All of your expertise and all of your watch stats are removed. The effect of this is that red cores receive slightly less diminished returns, and so in conflict, they're worth a little more. But this also applies to your health and armor. But because there isn't any diminished returns on HP, blue cores don't benefit as much once watch stats are removed. So for conflict, we ultimately end up with the ideal split of blue to red, being somewhere between 2 and 3 red. That means that once you have 2 reds on your build, any attribute or talent that can add the equivalent of a blue core, from a functional standpoint, is going to be better than one that can add 15% weapon damage. And that leads into why the Defender drone is the best in slot skill. Even at tier 0, the Defender will add the equivalent of about 120,000 HP. If you think of it in terms of damage, your opponent would be required to possess an additional 10% weapon damage just to keep up. But because the Defender drone at tier 0 doesn't last for your entire health pool, a tier 0 drone actually benefits a build with less blues more. And this factor of drone health is often overlooked. The drone, for the first couple of skill tiers, is one of the only skills that, as those skill tiers are added, doesn't suffer diminished returns. At 1 skill tier, we improve damage reduction to 12.5%, but we also increase the health to 1.9 million. This equates to 100% improvement. So, with what we've already learned, with the power of blue cores, and the improvement to the drone with 1 skill tier, it should come as no surprise when I tell you, the Ninja Bike backpack is the meta for conflict. Even on an all-blue build, with the additional power to the drone and the free red core, the margin of advantage to the Ninja Bike build is 14.5%, and that's not 14.5% weapon damage. That's 14.5% amplified damage. And when you factor in the Ninja Bike's talent, there is no other backpack that can compete. We can add our second red core back to the build and we can maintain our 14.5% margin. But if you notice, we now reduce our bullets to die under the value of 1 magazine. This is an important factor that few people take into consideration, and it's something we'll talk about later. Adding more damage from this point only reduces the margin of advantage. So, we now have the bones of a conflict build. Firewall for the OP medkit, 2 red cores for the best balance of survivability and damage, Ninja Bike backpack, and Unbreakable and drone as best in slot, chest talent, and skill respectively. I'm going to focus on gear set builds for this video, which means 3 more gear slots are automatically occupied. I'll talk about some other popular options in a later video, but for now, we have just 2 vacant slots to fill. With the Ninja Bike talent, we're looking for the gear with the best 2 or 3 piece attributes. Now, a factor that is easy to forget. Losing all your watch stats includes the crit chance and crit damage, the most costly of these being crit chance. But being costly to lose means increased value when you gain. So, for damage, the best 2 and 3 piece bonus high-end gear pieces are Providence, Sokolov, and Seska. Providence and Sokolov are self-explanatory, all 3 attributes perfectly aligned to damage. Cheska is in the mix because, although many people scoff, the 90% health is equivalent to 1.3 to 1.6 armor cores, depending if your enemy is using an assault rifle. You could put Walker and Harris in the mix, but if we compare it to Sokolov, you would have to be using 2 different weapon types in equal proportion to get maximum benefit, and even then, you'll still fall behind another option in most cases. But the percentages are so close that it doesn't really matter, especially when you realize there are better options than all 4 of these. If you recall from a little earlier, we learned that after our first 2 red cores, any talent or attribute that can add a blue core is going to add more than the equivalent of 15% weapon damage. It makes our first high-end gear piece choice much easier. With a Brazos piece, we can add another skill tier to our drone. Not only do we increase the damage mitigation, but we now have enough drone health to cover the entirety of our HP. This, in turn, adds more than the equivalent of a blue core. Now, believe it or not, the next best brand set on paper is actually Gila. 5% total armor combined with 60% health equates to about 1.5 blue cores. To be honest, of all of the 6 brand set options I've shown, there is very little difference. Except for one clear option. The Picaro's holster.
It's Picaro's.
I thought I told you. Shut your mouth. Right, where was I? That's right. So we've got Firewall for the medkit, a tier 3 drone, ninja bike backpack, Picaro's holster, unbreakable, and essentially shooter's choice for the chest piece, depending on your priorities, playstyle, and weapon selection. And what you've got is the makings of a super solid conflict build. Now the last step is to add in the gear set, and there are a number of options you can go with here. Striker's battle gear dominates in PvE and it's my go-to in the DZ, but that's due to the ability to build stacks. In Conflict, that's much more difficult to do, and in most cases, you're actually running at a deficit to most other builds. That's why it's my number 3 choice for today. But the 15% rate of fire and the stacking damage can't be ignored. I will regularly put a Striker's build on if I see the other team is running a couple of decoys. Decoys equals free stacks. But for reference, a Striker's build has to maintain over 25 stacks to compete with my number 1 gear set option. My number 2 choice, and by far the easiest to use, is True Patriot. The 8% amplified damage combined with the 8% damage reduction is a 17.4% amplified damage swing in your favor. When you combine that with 2% armor regen per second from the white flag and the fact that all of those benefits apply to the whole team, not to mention the possibly game-changing 30% mag size. And True Patriot is a true force to be reckoned with. But my number 1 choice for gear set is Umbra. We already spoke about, without the watch stats, crit chance is super valuable, and Umbra supplies a full 15%. Umbra also supplies the same rate of fire bonus as Strikers, but it also grants an additional 50% crit damage to marry with the additional crit chance it supplies. Now it does take a little getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, Umbra supplies you with instant access to all of its available damage at the beginning of a fight. And it's for that reason that a Striker's build would have to start at around 25 stacks to beat a charged Umbra build in a 1v1. When you combine these benefits with the ability to regenerate armor from cover passively, and with 30% reload speed, another underrated attribute, especially in PvP, and you can see why Umbra has slowly but surely made its way to meta status. And why it's my number 1 choice for those getting into PvP for the first time. Now, remember, your build is one of the lowest factors when it comes to your PvP results. There are plenty of other options to go along with different playstyles. Not to mention, there is a counter for every build. But on paper at least, the over 10 plus build options I've given you today will give you a solid foundation to start working on the other, more important aspects. Stop struggling, you'll only hurt yourself. I'm Storm, and if you preferred me to Fog, throw #Storm in the comments, hit the like button, and thanks for watching. Storm out.